Hello, you are listening to Marigolds and Juniper, a Kamloops-based podcast focusing on how the COVID-19 pandemic made an impact on our local food scene in mostly a positive way. I am your host, Jess Hart. I'm a mom, wife, cook, and legal assistant by day, and devoted food nerd, well, the rest of the time. Before we begin this grand journey together, I'd like to take a moment to thank StoryHive and TELUS for making the stream a possibility. Marigolds and Juniper is one of 16 StoryHive funded projects from their 2020 podcast pitch, which is like next level crazy and so exciting. In addition, we are also honored to bring you this podcast from the traditional territory of Kamloops Tisawetmik. In this episode, we'll be hearing from Kamloops Regional Farmers Market Manager Greg Unger and Social Media Events Coordinator Deanna Hurstfield on their response to the social distancing restrictions put in place and how the market makes sure that those in the lower income brackets can access local fresh produce. Bon appetit to your ears. So, to begin, could you please introduce yourself and describe your roles within the Kamloops Regional Farmers Market?
Okay, so I'm Greg Unger, and I am the Kamloops Market Manager.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Deanna.
I'm Deanna Hurstfield, and I the social media and special events coordinator. So Greg does the work, and I tell everybody what's happening.
That's great. You do lots of wonderful tips and tricks and stuff on social media. I've definitely tried a few of those as well, and
Awesome.
they've been great. That baking soda and the tomato sauce thing.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Life changer. I had to mess with it a little bit because I definitely put too much baking soda in. I was like, why does this taste weird? But
Yeah,
it's okay.
that's the feedback I had is like, be very careful with how
So
much you put in.
gentle.
It's an art.
That's amazing. Greg, how long have you been at the farmers market for?
I started in 2017, so I think this makes it my 4th year.
Amazing.
And it's actually the first job I got when I moved here.
Lovely. Deanna, how long have you been a part of it?
That's a more difficult question because I was a market manager long before Greg was. For about 3.5 years, but my recent stint has been since May, June of 2018.
Oh, okay, nice. That's awesome. Can you give us a little bit of history behind the creation of the farmers market and what it stands for?
So the Farmers Market was founded in 1978. Feel free to jump in, Deanna, if I'm missing anything.
Sure.
It was founded in 1978 by a group of, I think, about 4 local farmers, and they were meeting in the Kamloops United Church to discuss how there wasn't a whole lot of support for local growers in the region, and they wanted to fix that. And so it's baked into the mandate of the farmers market to boost local food security, food sovereignty in the region, support local producers and local growers.
Amazing.
In part of that, there was also an ecumenical group that was of several of the local churches, and the Kamloops Y, which I thought was interesting, but they were put together it was called 10 Days for World Development.
Okay.
And they were looking at trying to figure out, like with globalization and stuff, what should we do? And part of it, yes, the farmers coming up and saying, hey, we've got food, but we can't get it into the grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's, worldwide, there's these issues of poverty, of social justice, of food security and food sovereignty. And it's like, well, how do we deal with that? And so as part of it, it was like, well, they decided that rather than, trying to deal with something really far away, that it would be the first step was to deal with it at home.
Cool. That's amazing.
And stuff. So yeah, it is quite interesting.
And I think it's the 44th year that it's been running now,
This
right?
is the 44th
Yeah.
season.
That
Yeah.
is incredible. I was doing a little bit of reading, but it definitely sounds like the market was created as a matter of like self-sustainability, of course, food security for everybody, but also like this profound resiliency of we have all of these things that we can do for ourselves, and let's utilize that, and then we'll like any overflow can go to the surrounding communities, or we can figure out how to navigate that when the time comes. But
Totally.
it's a badass thing.
Well, yeah, and further badassery is that like I was talking with Mendel, one of the founders, and he was also like, he's the musical director, so he books a lot of the big musical acts. I book some of the smaller ones, like some of the buskers, and when we collaborated with the International Buskers Festival and that sort of thing.
Awesome.
But he books like the full bands that sometimes play in the schoolyard, and he was saying that from the beginning, one of the other things that they wanted to bake into the market was the idea of celebration, the idea of like, it's a festival, it's fun, it's for community, it's supposed to be enjoyable because food is enjoyable.
Exactly. That's really beautiful. I didn't know about the music part of that. That's really cool. So there's like two versions of market, right? There's the spring and summer market, and then there's also the winter market. Mm-hmm. Did you guys proceed with the winter market last year?
We did. The winter market's a lot younger.
Yes.
It's been tried off and on over the years in various forms. Since I began as manager, we are now in the second form of it.
Okay.
And so last year was the best winter one since I've started, and we moved it from Wednesday to Saturday.
Okay.
And we were given free space at Purity Feed over into Kamloops.
Awesome.
And it's a beautiful greenhouse. It was on Saturdays, so people could actually make it out, and it ended up being pretty good.
Cool. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Market, of course, is an outdoor event, but because there are so many vendors and there's so many people that want to come and participate and purchase, how did you guys navigate the regulations that were put forward with the COVID lockdowns?
Oof. Whiplash, constant whiplash. Yeah, it's been a dramatic year and a bit here. There were some concerns early on last year that we might not even be able to run, like during that first lockdown.
Wow.
But like some of our board members and myself, we pushed the city to let us open, and then also on a provincial level, there's an organization that advocates for farmers markets across the province, and so they started talking to like the provincial health office and stuff like that, the BC Farmers Markets Association.
Awesome, yeah.
And so they managed to convince the provincial health office that we're an essential service, which we are. Mm-hmm. We're providing food. We're a grocery store.
Absolutely.
As long as at first, we weren't allowed to have crafters and we weren't allowed to have music, and it was a very somber, like, come in, get your stuff and leave kind of affair.
Right.
And that, like, we're still trying to have some of that, but also, like, now we can have crafters, we can have buskers, and honestly, one of my favorite compliments from last year was that the farmers market still feels like normal, which meant a lot to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah, like things like we have to wear masks this year, or, you know, last year we were doing a lot to control the crowds to make sure people could space properly. We're going to bring that back this year over summer as well. Like, we do still have to take these precautions, but, I mean, we're also trying to make it feel normal.
Yeah, it must be really tricky to navigate because it's such a social interaction with people, and my experience is that a lot of the vendors want to talk to you about the product and teach you cool tricks. Like Soul Gardens always has these awesome little recipes, and Danielle is talking about these cool things that she's whipped up, and she used to have samples all the time, but now you can't really have it. You can't have that. Yeah,
it's hurt a lot of people in that regard. I mean, people are still, you know, trying to squeeze those little interactions in as they can, and but yeah, it's been tricky.
It's been tricky for sure, especially when we're all stuck at home and you're like, oh, I get to go to market, but I'm not supposed to talk to people.
I know.
I don't know about that one. So I understand that you guys created an online platform.
We rent, more like.
You rent an online platform. Yeah. So what does that mean? How did you go about creating that?
So it's a work in progress. But a company called Local Line, they're a Canadian company based out of Ontario. They were again approached by the BC Association of Farmers Markets, or the BC AFM got grant funding from the provincial government so that every farmers market in the province could use this online store for free for the first year.
Wow.
So this platform is pretty young, and it's a work in progress, but yeah, it's a way for farmers and growers and producers and crafters to all come out and sell their stuff online, and we try to offer curbside pickup along with it, that sort of thing. I don't know about Deanna, but I'm not a huge tech person, so my ability to provide support has been minimal, but I mean, it's here. Online is the way of the future, and I think Deanna and I are going to have to learn how to live with that. How to work
Too
with
bad, but yeah, there's growing pains.
Yeah, totally.
Right? I mean, that's part of what everyone figured out this last year is that, how do we pivot and shift to be able to still connect with people? And yes, through that, some things work and some things don't.
Absolutely. So I think that there's only a handful of vendors that are
using it. It was used more when the market, because not everybody was able to come to the winter market and stuff like that indoors. So it was being used by several of the farmers then, that they would promote it saying, hey, we're coming into town. If you want to order, come order, and then we'll do our drop-offs and stuff like that.
Nice.
I don't know how much it's being used now, just because, yes, a lot of people can actually come down to the market.
Right.
And people, they may choose to just interact directly with the farmer or whoever the vendor is that they're wanting to connect with.
Right.
Through their other social media and stuff like that. So
I guess that kind of just ties back to the original concept of market with being
like
go outside and
a celebration.
Exactly. Yeah. Internet will not prevail for the outside farmers market.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it'll be part of it for sure.
Cool.
But,
that's awesome.
yeah.
So are you guys going to continue working with that platform and just see where it kind of takes you?
We have opted to continue going after the free period has ended. So we still have it up and running, but there is another organization in town, the Kamloops Food Policy Council, which is starting something called the Food Hub.
Yes.
And as part of the Food Hub, I have already been in talks with the people starting the Food Hub that there is, I think, the option for like a local alternative to this, like something that might not just be for the farmers market, but might also be for the Kamloops Organic Buying Club, might be for New Leaf Market, might be for all of these other organizations that we could sort of collectively start some kind of online platform that would be home baked, which is really cool.
Wow, that is really cool.
So we're still, I'm not super part of it. The Food Hub is still like a year or two out from seeing that become a reality, but we've begun the conversation, and I'd love to see it go there instead of, and not to knock Local Line, they're great, but they're from Ontario, whereas this would be in Kamloops.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Yeah,
okay,
right?
but it's a couple years out, so don't get too nuts.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a lot of different programs that are all integrated throughout the Kamloops food scene. Can you talk about the relationship that the farmers market has with local food banks and allowing for lower income families or even homeless individuals to have access to fresh produce?
Sure. There's a couple things there. Again, feel free to jump in with some of the history. One of them is we put out little food bank donation bins on the street, and we collect donations. And then we tally them up over the course of the year, and then in the fall, once we know how much has been donated how much money has been donated over the course of the whole season, we talk to all of the vendors, all of the farmers who are still at market in like mid-October, and we ask them if we buy, using this donated money, if we buy, $500 worth of produce from you, will you take it to the food bank? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we do. Although we do give these vendors the option, like some of them have friends, like Mendel from Silver Spring is good friends with
Glenn Hilke?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Glenn Hilke. And
Yeah.
so he donates to Glenn Hilke instead of the food bank. Like that's acceptable.
Absolutely.
I think it's called the Loops.
That's awesome. So even the farmers that do have special relationships with other sort of programs, they take it upon themselves to make sure that there is access to produce.
Yeah, so that's there's the food bank bins that collect money. Then there's also people like Glenn who every Saturday and Wednesday will go through the market at the end and collect any like.
Yes, there is. So my understanding is Glenn's not going to be doing that this year, but the Kamloops Food Policy Council is going to, and I don't know what that's going to look like.
Okay.
But they're going to be taking that over, the collecting at the end of the farmers market, and then somehow distributing in the food and stuff. So I'm not certain what that looks like because I'm not been involved with that part with the Food Policy Council.
But too.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's the thing is it involves, and one of the really cool things is the Food Policy Council, which the Farmers Market was a founding sort of member of.
Amazing.
That it's as a network organization, so that these, as it evolves and, Jump comes in, Jump goes out, Salvation Armies has collected in the past, the food bank has collected, like various organizations, but it still goes on, even though it evolves and changes and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
And it's a great way also for farmers, like rather than throwing out their ugly vegetables or their vegetables that are going to wilt another night in the truck, they can give them to a local food organization.
It reduces the waste, right?
Yeah,
so and people get fed, and it's good quality local nutrition.
Yeah.
And then there is actually a third program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So speaking of ways that low income families can get food, again, and seniors.
Brilliant.
So speaking of the BC Association of Farmers Markets, they have now been running a program for about 7 or 8 years, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a bit longer than that.
Okay.
But yeah,
it's around a decade-ish, that length. And it's called the Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program. And so that's a province-wide program, again, that we are proudly part of.
Yeah.
And in town here, we partner with 2 local organizations, Interior Community Services and Kamloops Immigrant Services. And so that one's another really cool one. It's a way to get food to low-income families with young children is the one category, and the other category is low-income seniors.
Okay.
And on the one hand, they get fresh food from the market, and on the other hand, local growers get financial support from the government and other donors.
Yeah.
And so the main donor of the program is the BC Ministry of Health.
Okay.
But there's also lots of private donors, like a couple community futures groups. There's like Van City Bank in the Lower Mainland.
Okay.
Private individual donors. And so every family gets $15 worth of coupons each week or something like that, that they can take to the market and spend on whatever they want, as long as it's produce.
Okay.
It has to be
or,
grown.
Or protein.
Or protein.
Yes. Those are the two.
Meat or veggies, basically.
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, so then it's all grant funded. So the families get this food at no cost to themselves, and the farmers get support. It's another brilliant little program.
That's incredible. Did you find that there was any impact from COVID? Did it affect it at all?
So yes, it did. The turnover rate, the program tracks how many of these coupons get redeemed.
Okay.
And the program has always hovered around 90 to 95% recovery rate. So really high. A lot of people use it. When COVID hit, we finally cracked 95. So it doesn't sound super huge, but to be inching towards 100% recovery rate is pretty cool. Though on the other hand, also we noticed that at the very beginning of the program last year, the recovery rate was abysmally low. Nobody was going to market to turn in their coupons. But then towards the end of the season, once people got comfortable, that just skyrocketed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Was that the general ebb and flow of market once the pandemic hit? It was just slow? People were trying to figure out how to go about these kind of things. I mean, that was kind of the situation for all of us really in the community, was let's just kind of see what happens. But
those first few markets in April were quiet, scary affairs.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I don't know. It was a dramatic summer.
Dramatic. That's a good way to put it. So at the time of recording, this market is in full swing and we're getting ready to go, and it's super exciting. But do you have any tips for anybody that's trying to access their local farmers market on how to best adhere to the structures, the expectations?
Oh.
I can too.
You do this one so well. I'll jump in.
So follow our Instagram. Deanna's always posting lots of amazing tips or sharing amazing tips. Like I know she's sharing a series of tips of advice from Chef David.
Yes.
But
awesome.
like, so, and it's pretty, at this point, I would hope it's common sense stuff. So it's, think of it as shop, don't stop. Like nobody's gonna like come down and crack down on you for meeting a friend in the street and talking for a few minutes. Like that's fine. But it is ultimately like we're trying to encourage people come in, get your stuff and leave, and follow directional flow. So there's arrows on the street. New this year, we're asking people to wear masks. That's it's mandatory. It's a bit of a trade-off there. So we will be able to, we're still going to control the amount of people who come in at a time, but we're going to be able to allow slightly more because now, I mean, we're still not supposed to get too close, but at least with masks, some of that risk is mitigated.
Nice.
Wash your hands when you come into the market, follow the directional flow, wear your mask. Feel free to chat to friends or to vendors, but consider others and don't take too much time. Have fun.
Yeah.
Smile.
The most important part, right?
Smile with your eyes.
Exactly.
Learn to squinch. And wave to everyone.
That's great. My previous years at market, it's been very cash-based. So how have the vendors accommodated the fact that lots of people don't want to handle money anymore?
All over the place.
Mixed reviews.
Mixed reviews.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have switched to, like, a lot of vendors already had, like, debit and credit machines.
Or Square.
Or, yeah,
Okay.
Square.
Other
Common.
platforms?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, those sorts of things. Other vendors who didn't or don't have that technology have started accepting e-transfers.
Oh, nice.
So bring your mobile phone, you can do an e-transfer. Some vendors who have less than stellar opinions on technology just, they still only take cash and that's their prerogative.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cash is still legal tender. It will always be accepted. But yeah, e-transfers and a lot of card.
A lot of tapping.
A lot of tapping, yeah.
I guess a lot of cash comes with a heavy dose of hand sanitizer following, right?
Yeah, like the ATM has a hand sanitizer right beside it.
Nice.
So go to the ATM, use the hand sanitizer, get your money, use your hand sanitizer again.
It's just,
And the vendors have hand sanitizers at their booths and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's, I've been there and paid, and if they have one of the handheld machines and stuff, and they're just like, here's hand sanitizer.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Kamloops has been doing a great job with supporting current local businesses, but also helping establish more. So like, for example, Bryn's Bakery is a Kamloops Regional Farmers Market alumni.
Yeah.
How exciting is that?
Super.
Very.
And they're not the first and they're not going to be the last.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How can the downtime that COVID has allowed for a lot of individuals to take has really seemed to spark a lot of creativity. So how are others able to access selling their goods at the market?
Like how does one become a vendor?
How does one become a vendor? And
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another super common question that I get. And you can go to our website. I apologize for its state.
It's fine.
Again, not the techiest guy in the room. KamloopsFarmersMarket.com/join. And it has a whole lot of information there. The board meets once a month to review applications. So it's not like a deadline has been missed. It's a rolling deadline. You can apply all the way through September.
Oh, nice.
By late September, early October, I'm probably not going to reply too fast. We're running out of the season and my energy levels are starting to wane. But you can apply all season long. And feel free to be in communication with me if you're like... So being a crafter, it's fairly not a lot of regulations around it, but prepared food can have quite a few...
Lots of rules.
Yeah, like high risk and low risk food types, that sort of thing. So info@kamloopsfarmersmarket.com. I'm always available to answer questions once my email is fixed. Also, I would like to just throw out there that there's a couple options now on the table, new this year for new vendors to help them navigate all of these scary processes. The first is the Kamloops Food Hub. again. Kent Fawcett, who is the Food Hub coordinator, also runs...
He's also a vendor.
A vendor named
Nice.
Local Pulse.
Yeah.
He's a vendor. He's been a vendor for years. He knows the process. He is starting a farmers market boot camp at the Food Hub.
That's incredible. Are you serious?
I'm very excited.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
Super rad. So Food Hub at KamloopsFoodPolicyCouncil.com. And he will help you navigate high risk versus low risk. He'll help you, if you do have high risk food, he'll help you find a commercial kitchen. Eventually the Food Hub will have its own commercial kitchen, but for now he's got a network of restaurants that maybe aren't running, or, places like TRU, which they don't use their kitchen in summer.
Yeah.
These kinds of places.
Oh, and there's also Garden Gate has a new facility. So I am on the Food Hub working group.
Yeah.
And they also have a new facility, and so we've paired up with them. So we went with a decentralized model for the Food Hub, and yeah, there's lots of really interesting things percolating up. And so when Greg is talking about the kitchen for the Food Hub itself, it's actually a HACCP facility that's being renovated
Okay.
and stuff. So that should be available in a few months. So there's
so
a bunch of
fun.
stuff they have to do and so on. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
There's so many things to access. When you say Garden Gate, you're talking about the program that Dieter Duty helped put together, right? Was that the
I'm not certain of all the origins of it, but
Fair.
it's the one that's out on South Hill.
Okay.
And it works with the Open Door Group. It's a program under them.
Right.
And they work with people who have barriers to employment and mental health issues and stuff like that. And it's an organic farm.
Nice.
And they just finished, or I think, no, they have one more Saturday, I think, for their bedding plant sale. Normally they'd have lots of people come, and
Okay.
that's not obviously possible this year.
Yeah.
So they had an online sale, and they're doing a smaller greenhouse sale that
Okay.
people can go and get plants at. But they also do farm gate sales in a very narrow window, but it's a source of local produce. They also have a program where the produce they grow, I think it's like almost like a CSA or whatever, but it goes to the people, local people who need it. So again, because nutrition is such an important part of health and mental health and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that one. So yes.
That's, man, Kamloops is awesome.
I want to throw out that there's other supports for new vendors too.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So, I get fixated. So Community Futures Thompson Country also has a new support available. So for a younger, smaller vendor who needs financial aid, unfortunately, this doesn't extend to crafters.
Okay.
It's mainly aimed at agriculture, but it also supports food producers. Community Futures has grant money for 6 vendors that it will pay for half of their vendor fees at the farmers market.
Nice.
And it will pay for their equipment, like their table, their tent, that sort of thing. And then
Okay.
if they're a farmer, there's some additional supports there as well with like agricultural equipment. And then Community Futures also does a lot of business mentorship programs.
Mm-hmm.
So by getting into this grant program, you would also then be eligible for all of their business support as well.
That's amazing.
It's a group that I refer a lot of vendors to if they're new to if they're new to the market, or if they're new to the whole social media and
Right.
Instagram and Facebook, because certainly as someone who's posting to it, it helps if the vendors post.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of them are really super comfortable with it, but some are not. And Community Futures has free workshops. So
Very cool.
yeah, it's very, very cool.
Lots of self-advocacy and empowerment that's going on here.
Totally.
Cool.
There's lots of resources out there. Those are the 2 new ones. I mean, Venture Kamloops has also reached out to me in the past to offer their support to vendors who need it.
Wow.
There's BC Association of Farmers Markets has like all kinds of grants that come up every now and then that are accessible. Like there's tons of supports for local businesses if they want them.
That's fantastic.
There's also on the farming side, there's the Young Agrarians
Okay.
who they have a mentorship program. They have a land matching program because access to land is one of the biggest barriers for young new farmers wanting to get into.
Certainly.
You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's land's expensive.
Yeah, to say the least.
And, you know, if you're leasing it, you know, there's a whole bunch of considerations and stuff. And so they have programs that will help walk both the landowner and the person interested in leasing through it or buying and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
And they have a lot of really good programs.
Holy smokes. I think that's a really lovely place to end this. But is there anything more that you guys want to add to the story? No pressure. No pressure at all.
Buy local.
Buy local.
Eat local.
Eat local.
Yeah.
Eat in season.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thanks, guys. This was awesome. I'm so excited to learn about all of the programs. I thought Kamloops was incredible before, but just to see the amount of support and community, it's something
It's a good
else.
place to be.
It's a great place to be. And even like, I just as like an aside, as I mentioned before, I moved here in like 2017. It was a totally foreign space to me. I moved from a small town to Vino, and I came here and I've always been involved in the restaurants. So working for local restaurants that really supported and empowered the farmers in the area was a crazy cool experience. But I never really got, I shouldn't say that I never got, I really felt the community of Kamloops. My husband was in a really bad car accident back in October 2018, and you know, market was still going on, and I was just like totally someone else. I was not a human for a while, but I remember coming to market, the Terra Mule with like a bunch of bags and like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm just gonna get this day happening. And everyone is so kind and supportive, and they just want to say hello and tell you a little bit about themselves, and they are on that table waiting for everybody to come and just take a little bit of them.
Totally.
And it's awesome.
It is.
Magical place to be here.
Kamloops is like an amazing network.
Yeah.
It's a network town.
It really is.
Yeah.
Just a constant revolving door. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your time immensely, and I'll probably see you guys on Saturday.
Awesome. You're
Quite
very
possible.
welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
If you have enjoyed this episode, well, thank you. Please be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you know someone awesome in the food industry, please email me, Jess, at marigoldsandjuniper@gmail.com and tell me all about them. Thank you so much for inviting me into your day. I love you, Kamloops. Met Wichterman.